Hey, what's up everybody? Mark Price here at devslopes.com, and today I'm going to take a magical, complex principle and teach it to you so it's easy to understand. And that principle is bind. You may see it a lot in JavaScript as you're going about in different code bases or GitHub or wherever. And in your web development, you will use the .bind function prototype often. And let me show you why you would use it and the problems that come if you don't use it. Okay, and we use it in multiple frameworks throughout the internet, whether it's Angular or React or whatever. You're going to use the bind function. So let's talk about it here. So let me make this bigger here. I am on jsbin.com, and I just have the JavaScript tab here and the console tab here selected. And so let's talk about the problem. So let's say I have a garage, and in fact, not my garage. This is Alex Brown's garage, okay? And he's got a garage object here, okay? So, excuse me, hold on. We're gonna make actually a car first. This dot car, okay? And that's gonna be equal to Honda Civic with ugly spoiler. Okay, so Alex Brown has a Honda Civic with an ugly spoiler. That's his car, okay? I have a garage with my own car, okay? And so this is Mark's garage. And Mark has a car. And his is an Aston Martin, okay? Probably the Vanquish. And he has a function called getCar. He likes to call this function, I'm talking in the third person here. He likes to call this function whenever he wants to, whenever he wants to get his car. So we're just going to return this dot car. Okay? Makes sense, right? So if I console.log Mark's garage dot get car, let's run it and see what happens. Aston Martin, great. So that's cool. So everything's normal. This is plain JavaScript. You've seen it before. All right? Makes sense? Now let's say I need to go to work, and I want to store this function for later, this getCar function for later, so I can grab my car out of the garage later after work, okay? This might be similar to like an HTTP request, something that's going to come back at a later point in time, whatever it may be. So I'm going to store this function, okay? I'm going to say store getCar for later. So I'm just storing the function, that's all. So I'm going to grab it, Mark's garage.getCar. You with me so far? In JavaScript, you can store functions and variables, call them at later point of time, etc. Okay? And so cool. I stored it. Now work is over and Mark wants his car. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Now we'll console.log, and we're going to call that function since we stored it for later, right? Store get car for later. Okay? Oh, and we want to, yeah, we just want to call that function. Okay, so I should see my Aston Martin when I clear this and run it. What? WTF. I got Alex Brown's Honda Civic with ugly spoiler. What's going on here? Well, so this function right here, this getCar function, it's returning this dot car. Okay? Well, when I store that function here in this top class, okay, or this top object where Alex Brown car is, this is his garage, and I store it here, and then I call the function, this, that keyword right there, this, is now referring to the outer this. It's not referring to the this inside of Mark's garage. It's referring to the this of the main script file, okay, of Alex's garage here, okay? So we lost our scope. We lost the scope of the object in which we were referring to, okay? And so this is a big problem when you are working, especially with promises in JavaScript. So when you make a web request, and then you're waiting for it to come back, and then a .then function is called, okay, where you're going to actually handle the data. Well, you're going to possibly lose that object, and you're either going to have null values, or you're going to have errors or inconsistent results, okay? So this is something that you have to be mindful of, and because it can happen so easily, just like it did here. I got stuck with Alex Brown's Honda friggin' Civic. And anyway, so WTF, that's right. So store get car for later. So how do we fix this problem? How do I make it so I can store this for later so I can get my car out of the garage? So I'm going to say var sorry, make this bigger here, var the real get car function, okay, this is the real one, this is the one we're going to bind, okay, is going to be equal to store get car for later dot bind, and we're going to pass in Mark's garage. Let me actually make this a little bit, okay, so what we're saying here is this function right here, okay, we're just going to bind it, okay, we're going to bind it to Mark's garage, okay, and I didn't have to do it this way. In fact, that's probably more complicated. What I could have done, delete this, could have just said the real get car function is Mark's garage dot get car, just like we did before, right? Like this right here, except this time we're going to call the dot bind function, and we're going to pass in Mark's garage, okay? So let's make sure this works. I'm going to console.log the real get car function, and let's see what happens. Clear, run. So there it is. My car is successfully printing up here, and here's the reason why. So what we've done is we've grabbed the function get car out of Mark's garage. So we are grabbing this function here and we're storing it right here, just like we did before. The difference is we're calling dot bind and we're passing in the object that we want to retain. Okay, Mark's garage. What we're saying is, hey, bind this. So when we call this function, okay, this right here is referring to Mark's garage and not anything else. So that's what the bind function does, okay? The bind function allows you to set the scope of your function where the keyword this is going to be referring to. And so we want it to stay in the context of this function. And maybe you don't want to do that. You don't always have to do this. That is only when you need the data that's inside of that specific function or object that you're calling, okay? Whatever context you're putting on, that's if you want it tied to a specific scope or context, you know, you can just pass the object in there. Or, you know, if I wanted to bind this, like meaning, I say this so many times, I wish they'd change that keyword. So if I was referring to the main script file that's we were working on here, I could put the this keyword in here. Of course, it would give me the same results, the Honda Civic. But in our case, we want to refer to Mark's garage. And so it's not an error to not use the bind function. It just depends on how you want to use the function itself. And in our case, we wanted to print the data that was inside of Mark's garage. So you're going to see this a lot. This is the bind function. It's actually a prototype, a JavaScript prototype that's attached to the a function. And you're going to use it throughout your development. Very important to understand how it works, because you may run into bugs and you're like, why isn't this working? I'm doing it correctly. And you'll be pounding the keyboard, the computer, and punching the wall and kicking your dog, and it'll be because you didn't use the bind function. So that's it. Mark Price here with devslopes.com. Join me in the anti-Honda Civic movement at devslopes.com. I'm just kidding. I don't have a movement like that, but I should start something like that, an email list, like Coders Against Honda Civics. I'm just kidding. I actually have a Honda Accord. So don't feel too bad. Alex Brown, Mark Price here, devslopes.com, signing out. And remember, to get your free live help, go to devslopes.com and click on chat room. I'm there all the time, as well as a huge community of other students.